Hello, and welcome to Marathon Swim Stories, where we explore the human side of the superhuman feats of endurance swimmers and those who support them. I'm marathon swimmer and coach Shannon Keegan. Do you ever have that moment when someone's name sounds really familiar, but you're not sure why? That's exactly what happened to me today. Of course, Stefan Reinke would be familiar to me. We've shared the water on multiple occasions. In 2014, we cruised down the flooded Red River of the North at End Wet, and again at the inaugural Cliff Backyard Ultra in 2018. And I'm looking forward to visiting him on the island of Oahu in about a month for their annual Solstice Swim. Listen to find out all about it. Won't you join us? Stefan, thank you for being our guest today. It's such a pleasure to meet you early in the morning. Not early, we already talked about that. Not too early in the morning in Hawaii, but 9 a.m. over there. Tell us, what's your story?
Um, my story is just the normal, common, usual swimmer story. I
Yeah.
wake up in the morning, I swim, I come home, I eat, I go to bed, I repeat. Isn't that for most swimmers?
Most swimmers, yeah, I think so. When did you start swimming?
Um, my swimming started back in 1967, 66 or 67, and I of course I don't have much memory back then, but I remember very distinctly being at Haleiwa Beach Park. And my brother, who's 3 years older than I am, was out surfing on one of those styrofoam surfboards, just playing in the waves. And I insisted that I wanted to go out there. And my mother said, "You can go out there as soon as you join the swim team."
Oh,
So a month later, they had tryouts for the swim team. And I tried out for the swim team, got on the swim team. And I did it solely because I wanted to go out and play in the waves. And
very
that's how I
cool.
became a swimmer.
Yeah, so you grew up in Hawaii?
I did. My father was in the army, and so we moved to Hawaii in 1966 when I was 8 years old, and I began swimming, as I say, either in late '66 or early '67, and I don't know precisely what, for the Schofield Sharks, and swam with them for 3 years, and then swimming became part of our existence. So my father, when he came back from Vietnam, we went to Fort Sam Houston to combat. He was at Combat Developments Command. We moved there, and there was a local community swim team. So we joined the local community swim team. My brother and I did, and my mother became involved, and ultimately my mother became the coach
Mm.
of that local community swim team. And then when we moved back to Hawaii when I was in high school, we were starting high school, I kept swimming and have swum ever since, with the
Mhm.
brief exception when after I finished 2 years of swimming in community college, I took 3 years off from swimming before I went to law school and spent that time in my fraternity house swimming in different fashions.
Yeah. Which island do you live on?
I live on Oahu. I've always
Oahu.
lived on Oahu. We moved here, as I say, in 1966. And kind of the funny thing is, before I moved, before I came back in the 1970s, I never came or went to Hawaii except by boat. I never came on an airplane until we moved
Wow.
back in 1973. It was the
Wow.
first time I actually took a boat or a plane ride to Hawaii from the mainland.
What was the boat ride like? What do you remember?
Fantastic.
Yeah.
The first time was on a troop carrier they brought families over on a troop carrier. And the second time we went back on the Lurleen, which is a Matson line. And then my final time on a boat when I left Hawaii in 1976 to move to the mainland, ostensibly to go to college, I went on a 39 or 38-foot sailboat with
Wow.
my uncle and a couple of his business partners. So my travel back then was limited to sea.
Right. Yeah. Wow. Okay. So you did a little bit of college on the mainland and then went back?
I went to school. I arrived in California on my boat ride on July 4th, 1976. And that evening, we arrived at like 3 in the morning in Marin, 4 in the morning in Marin. And that evening, they had a huge fireworks celebration to celebrate us. It's on the 4th of July that year. And uh, my mother had sent me with $200 in cash, which is a pretty small fortune back in 1976.
Mhm.
And I was tasked with looking for colleges to attend. So I ended up staying with my cousins for a while, and I stopped to visit my brother and grandmother in Bakersfield, California. And I ran out of money in Bakersfield, so I stayed for 2 years.
I see.
And I had the good fortune of being able to play water polo then, not very well, but to do that and then swim for the junior college team, Bakersfield College. And it very much enjoyed it. It was a great group of guys I swam with. I'm still in touch with some of them to this day. We always laughed because we didn't look like anything like swimmers. So other teams would show up and we'd say, "Oh, those guys look a lot like swimmers." But we had some pretty good swimmers on our team, and me not being one of them, I was just kind of in the middle, kind of average swimmer. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the camaraderie. I enjoyed being in. It's going to sound funny for anybody from California, but I really enjoyed being in Bakersfield. And in fact, I still have a friend from Bakersfield, Charles Brown, who's done Scar and Tahoe. Is still we spoke to the other day. He's coming out to join us for some channeling. He still lives in Bakersfield.
That's awesome. Okay, so then you went back to the islands. Well, did you do any, so you were able to go play in the waves once you joined the swim team, right? Did you do any kind of open water swimming competitions as a kid?
No, I didn't. In fact, it's funny. I missed the start of the Waikiki rough water swim. It was going on when I was in high school, but I was living up in the country, and that was a 45-minute drive to town. So it's not something I would have gotten involved with because it was 45 minutes away. It was like in another universe.
Right.
But it was going on. I didn't start open water swimming until I moved back after law school. And then there was a competition on the North Shore called the North Shore Swim Series. And it was a series of races that were put on by the Waikiki Swim Club as well as some independent promoters in one race. And I started swimming those. And that was kind of, at the time I was doing triathlons. So swimming was just an easy part for me for triathlon, easy to do the racing, kind of training. I'd ride my bike up there and swim, didn't care much about it. And of course, I started doing the rough water because by that point, I'd gotten over my fear of driving to town and started doing that event. And of course, that's gets international competition. And I was, once again, kind of in the middle of the field for that race.
Yeah. So then how did you find those kind of like shorter, like when did you start getting into distance-y stuff?
Well, I did triathlons for just over 20 years and enjoyed them and had fun with it, enjoyed the people I met with. I coached for one of the local triathlon groups for Boca, Hawaii, and was enjoying it to death. And then one season after the 2012 Ironman Arizona, I started having a lot of pain, joint pain, and it took many months to diagnose it. It turns out I had a form of arthritis that was really preventing me from running or riding a bicycle. And I spent that summer literally overcoming that pain. When I said swimming was the only thing I could do, and I was enjoying it. And I have a group of friends I meet with every Friday called the Ala Moana Beach Swim Club. We would meet every Friday, and one of my friends, Ryan Leong, who we're going to talk to about later, he said one day, "Hey, I found this crazy race. It's up in North Dakota. It's 27 miles long." And he laughed about it. I said, "Okay, that sounds good." So I signed up for it because I couldn't do triathlons anymore. And I was used to doing training that took a lot of time. So I signed up for NWET. It just so happens, though, and if you know the history of NWET, it was 27 miles until 2014 when it became 36 miles.
Yes.
So I went from my longest swim ever being a 10K one time as a relay for Ultraman to taking on a 36-mile race. Needless to say, it was an eye-opener.
So you were there in 2014?
2014.
So was I.
Yes, you were. Yes, you were.
I didn't.
And it was a great day. As you remember, it was a great day for swimming.
For flood. Yeah, it was a flood.
It's the fastest year ever.
Yeah.
And you got to wear the orange buoy and
before they were cool.
Before they were cool.
I just remember that was a big deal for me to accept I had to wear it the whole time. I don't know why. I just wasn't used to it before.
Yeah, it's funny. I actually liked it because this is probably against the rules of open water swimming. When you stop to take a break, you'd wrap your arms in because we had the flood that floated you down. So you could drink in a very relaxed fashion without having to use much energy. So I like that buoy. I don't like it particularly for open water ocean swimming. And I know that that may not be the right politically correct thing to say about it for safety point of view, but
Right.
particularly in Hawaii where we get lots of wind and lots of wave action, I can find those buoys to be a little distracting. I mean, I've used them
Hmm.
before, but having said that, I rarely swim, very rarely swim in the open water by myself,
Yeah.
other than at Ala Moana Beach, which is like a big swimming pool, so it doesn't matter. Um, because I don't think it's safe to be in the ocean anywhere meaningfully offshore by yourself.
Yeah, true.
There's people that do it that I don't subscribe to that. So,
Yeah.
but anyways, I did NWET, enjoyed NWET completely. Kevin Copeland, who won that year, was ahead of me. There's a guy named Scott Jensen was ahead of me, wearing his wetsuit when he passed me. I cursed him soundly, but I finished the race and was hooked, completely hooked.
You
By
didn't mind the fresh water?
didn't of course Red River of the North is though as great.
Chocolate milk?
Yeah, he kept saying, "Oh, this is really fresh water," and I said, "Yeah, but I can't see anything." Uh, but I guess that didn't matter.
You couldn't see anything. It was disturbing. I just remember being like, it's like you put your face literally like in chocolate milk, and then you look out and you're like, oh, the sun is out. And it was crazy.
That was the glory of that swim, though. When you'd stop and you'd look at the blue skies, and it was such a fortunate day because we had this flood, but at the same time we had perfect weather.
Hmm.
And I
Yeah.
remember my paddler was this young guy who didn't even own a watch. I had to buy a watch so he could track my feeds. I bought him a watch so that he could he had his on a stand up, and I had a great time with him. And I instructed him, and he followed this instruction very well. If there was anything cool to see, he was to stop me. So I saw bald eagles. I saw critters on the side of the river. It was really spectacular. I very much enjoyed that day, and the water temperature was such that I didn't feel like I was going to have significant problems from the cold, and that had been a big fear of mine because my coldest training day is in the mid 70s at the lowest. I mean, maybe it hit 74 once in a while.
Yeah. Wow.
This weekend it was 78, 79.
Oh my
So
gosh.
that's pretty typical. I mean, it can be a little warmer during the summer,
Wow.
maybe into the low 80s, but never much above that. And as I say, never below 70, never.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. And it was around 70 that year, wasn't it? And what?
Rough numbers,
Yeah.
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, it felt comfortable. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's advantage and a disadvantage training here in Hawaii because we do get the problem of when you try and race on the mainland, even 65-degree water feels cold.
Really cold. You're just not used to it. Yeah.
I mean, you probably saw the pictures from Scar of the dam release in front of Apache that Dan posted, and they talk about 52-degree water. It's incomprehensible
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
me, uh, even for a short period of time. And I would give up any push they got from the dam release
Yeah.
because of that temperature.
How did you did do Scar though, right?
I've done
When
Scar.
Yeah.
I've completed Scar twice, and twice I've failed at Apache.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, Scar is far and away my favorite open water race. I think Kent does such a spectacular job of promoting camaraderie, promoting working hard but not stressing. I mean, and I always loved his line. You got to be flexible because you really do it at an event like that, and it's
Mhm.
not. Never, I mean, blades falling, propellers falling off boats
Yeah.
almost capsizing. Things going off schedule. Uh,
Yeah.
it just happens, and if you can't put up with that, you don't belong doing that kind of a swim.
Right. Right. Yeah. So how did you handle the colder waters at Scar coming
Not
from your
very well.
not very well. You just swam faster?
But it's funny. The first year, I think we had pretty good conditions. I mean, the first time I failed Apache, which was my second year, I, I remember just being cold and having the wind and having the chop. And I had one of the most excellent paddlers, Eric Gerald, who's spectacular, bringing me along. And finally, he just said to me, "Dude, you're not moving." And I said, "Yeah, I'm done." And he thanked me later. He says, "Yeah, I didn't know how I was going to tell you I was going to pull you out of the vent because I was, just I was done.
You're
It was
frozen.
over." And it's funny because I go back and I've been back since then. I remember exactly where I got pulled out that year. And I said to myself afterwards, oh, should have kept going. I should have kept going. There was no way I was going to get to that finish line. I was so far away from the finish line when I stopped. And the
Mm-hmm.
same thing the next year when I got out, I was still hours from the finish line when I was physically done. And it primarily because of the cold, but that year also was a little bit of a factor of nutrition.
Mm.
And I learned from each of those failures. I mean, I learned and tried to program in what I could do to try and help prevent those failures in the future. But then the next year was in 2018, the conditions were absolutely drop dead gorgeous. There's very little wind, and so there was nothing to fail with.
Right, right. Yeah. Yeah, that's great. So going back to Inwet, so your first big long swim, how did it feel when you finished that?
Pretty spectacular, actually. It was fun. I think that I was able to make it through without realizing how hard it was. And so I got to the finish and I had lots of extra energy and I felt good. I was so jazzed by the whole thing. And I was jazzed by the number of people that were there watching and the volunteers that were involved. It just really was a good feeling. And, truly you get that sense of the community that open water swimming is from a race like Endwet.
Mm.
Even though you're only there for 2 days, it lacks that camaraderie that happens over a multiple day event
Mm-hmm.
in that regard, but it's pretty close. And you certainly get the good feeling you get from open water swimming in an event like that. We had the pre-event at the bakery, and then we had the post-event at the theater. And
Mm-hmm.
you felt like you got to know people better. You felt like you had this shared experience. And for me, that having come from triathlons, where I think in general triathlons aren't known for that sense of camaraderie.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, it's more adversity or yeah,
Feels that way.
competition. Yeah.
I mean, actually, it's an attitude that when I was coaching triathletes, what I tried to work against, because I thought that I don't think it's healthy, because frankly, most of us aren't good enough athletes, and we really should be thinking that, like as vicious and cutthroat as some people want to be. We're
Uh-huh.
just not that good. We really should be getting something else out of it, the personal satisfaction, the goal oriented. And racing is part of it. Look at two people in speedos in a pool. That's a race.
Yes.
Whether they know each other or not, what's been announced or not, that's what it is. And I mean, we've all experienced it at one point or another, whether it's the YWCA, the YMCA, the community pool, whichever it is, it becomes a race. So we have that natural instinct,
Mm-hmm.
but that shouldn't be the primary instinct, at least in my feeling, for endurance sports for adult athletes.
Mm-hmm.
There's a handful of people that are very competitive and that I think should be trying hard. But I think the bulk of us, it really should be about the experience. It should be about the feeling we get when we do well, but also the feeling we get when our friends do well, when the people
Yeah.
around us do well. Because when you can experience, I remember sitting at a line looking at some people one day, and we were in a training session, and there's a couple of guys from the triathlon clinic, and I looked at them and said, "Look, at guys, take joy from the success of your friends." And that
Yeah.
became my kind of one of my trade lines for the next couple of years in that triathlon clinic. Let's take
Mm.
joy from each other's success. Like take joy from the success of others.
Yeah.
Because if you can do that, even if you haven't had a great day, if your friend has, you can be really happy about the day. And
Yeah.
why should you be doing this to feel miserable for 4 or 5 days afterwards? It makes no sense to me. But I can only speak as to me and try and help other people understand that if this is stressful, you might as well go to work and make money if you're going to be stressed.
Right.
So,
I feel like that's where marathon swimming is like this. I think that's part of the connection that we feel with each other is because, an open water, a channel swim, or even a lake crossing, you're never going to get the exact same conditions. Like you can't really compare times. It's really more about the personal achievement. And I guess to me, that's what I love about it. That's what I promote is like going beyond the competition. What can you do? And I love it with too that we also give back to each other. You support someone else, and you feel like when you see someone you help support finish, you feel so proud that you get to be a part of that, as well as like you were saying, like that you might wonder, well, oh gee, could I do that? and then it's a personal, you set a new personal goal by enjoying your friend's success, which I love too.
We have at the Almona Beach Swim Club, and we every year put on an event. Well, I say every year. This will be the fourth year, called the Solstice Swim, or the fifth year, fourth or fifth year. I'm not sure which. We call it the Solstice Swim. It's on this year on June 19th, and we call it a party for ourselves and our friends. We have no permits, uh, much like Kent at Scar at the original. We have no insurance, much like Kent at the original Scar. We don't have any rules, which is maybe a little different than Ken. Ken has these kind of amorphous rules of his. We had we have no T-shirts. We have no prizes. We have nothing but the desire to get together starting at 6 o'clock in the morning and swimming a distance every hour on the hour for every full hour of sunlight. And I talk about this because you can go 26,000 meters that day. You can go, actually, a handful of people go about 30,000 meters, and I suppose you could go more. We have people that are going 5,000 meters. They're going out, they only do 5 lengths. They'll swim a 500 and they'll run okay. But what they're doing is they're pushing their boundaries. And we see people for the first, and the look on people's faces when they say, I swam 10K today. I've never swum 10K in my life. I swam 7K today. And they may have done it over 10 hours.
Yeah.
But they've done it, and they've accomplished something they could never think that they could accomplish before. I mean, it is truly what makes it a special part. And they call it a party because someone says, "Oh, can I come?" And I said, "Well, you're my friend, so you can come." And they said, "Well, can I bring this person from San Francisco?" I said, "Well, are they your friend?" And they say, "Yeah." I said, "Well, they can come then. It's friends and our friends' friends. They're invited to come, and you set up on the beach and you start. And the only rules we have, and actually they're just common sense rules, is you got to watch out for people so you don't run any head-ons, and you got to be polite because we don't own the beach, we don't have any permits, and we frankly don't want to have any permits. We don't want to have to go through the process. Right. We don't want to charge anybody for it because there's no entry fee for this. Just to show up and have fun.
And is this an invitation to anybody who listens to this podcast?
Anybody that listens to this podcast, because anybody that listens to this podcast that is your friend, and that since you're my friend, they're friends of friends.
I'm going to be looking to flights to Oahu on June 19th because it fits really well into my training plan to do that.
That's actually, and that is part of the reason we started the Solstice Swim was a training swim, because it really is a great way to jumpstart your channel training. You think if you do a 2,000 meters, this is an Almona Beach, and it's 1,000 meters down and 1,000 meters back. You figure you start with a 2K, and you can do that in 35, 40 minutes open water pretty easily and not be pushing yourself. You do that 1 time, 2 times. About the 6th or 7th time, you're thinking, this is a lot of swimming I'm doing. When you get to the 10th, you realize I'm feeling pretty tired, even though I've had a 35 or 40-minute break. I've hydrated and eaten and done all that. It's a great challenge for you mentally to keep it going. When you do the 3K option, it just becomes a disaster for your brain after about 4.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I did the Cliff Backyard Ultra the inaugural year that Sarah held that in Wellington. That was crazy. Yeah. Man, that's right. Man, we keep running in the same circles.
I remember your swim, and I remember you going past the buoy.
The last one.
We said, keep going. You said, no, I'm done. Even though you probably had a minute's worth of rest.
I would have had a couple of minutes. Yeah. Sometimes it's one of those things you think back on. Like I could have kept going, but I was pretty good.
You guys, it was so impressive because you kept going well into the dark and through thunderstorms.
Oh God, thunderstorms, man, that was crazy. I was like, I'm not coming. I'm not going to make it home to ever see my kids again.
There's a certain insanity about that. I'm sorry that event has not been able to sustain itself, and I hope that Sarah's able to recreate it at some point, because I'd like to go back and try it. I stopped at some point, and partially I stopped because I was done, and partially I stopped because I was going to do a Tahoe attempt later in the season. And my wife, one of the last things she told me was, this is not an A event. When you get tired, stop, because Tahoe is your A event. And in retrospect, after I failed so miserably at Tahoe, I wish I'd done more laps in Colorado.
Right. But how did you deal with the cold there with that? Because it was like 60, wasn't it like 65 or 64 or something?
I did miserably.
Mm.
Actually, it was very difficult for me. I didn't plan it very well. I thought Stephen Rao did a really smart thing. He had those water bottles, those hot water bottles that
Mm-hmm.
he was using between events. He changed suits between each swim,
I never
which I
thought
thought
of
was
that.
pretty
Yeah,
smart.
super smart.
And so there were just little things that could have done, should have done, that would have made it a little bit better. I don't know if you remember that poor fella from the East Coast, from the Southeast. I think he's from Florida, who had maybe 3%, 4% body fat. And he'd sit by that fire shivering, and then it's time for him to get back in. He'd still be. I felt so bad for him. He was so fast, but it didn't help much.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's what I think Sarah told me at one point. She's like, you could just stay in the water. Like, you don't have to get out. But, like that, once it got dark, then it made a little more sense because it was colder out. But anyway, it helped for me to be mostly pretty slow. My breaks were shorter, but I like out for half an hour. I was out for like 10, 15 minutes. So it worked out pretty
Well,
well.
at the very beginning, when I was going as hard as I could be out for only 10 or 15 minutes. Uh, I really, like I said, I hope that Sarah is able to recreate that event in some form or fashion. And in the event I just mentioned, the summer solstice swim, really and truly was a ripoff of the Cliff Ultra. We just, because we don't have permits, and because swimming at night in Hawaii is a little different than swimming in a lake at night, we decided just to do every full hour of sunlight. But
Yeah.
but it truly, Sarah Thomas deserves the credit for us doing what we do, because
Yeah.
it's because of her we do it.
That's my guess last night. Sounds like she wants to spread it, have it more places, which would be fantastic. I'm hoping to catch up with her again soon, and hear what she's up to.
Yeah,
Um,
she was out here a couple of months
oh, that's
ago.
right.
We got
Yeah.
then we didn't really get to spend any time. We got to chat a few times, and then we met her at the beach when she showed up. Very fast, very early in the morning.
Of course.
Um, yeah, she had a pretty spectacular KV channel. And and what's interesting is, I don't think she mentions it much, but there were boat problems that night. The boat had some issues, and she didn't even know she was going to even do the channel until literally hours before she did it, because it had been on and off again with the weather, and she didn't complain once. And I think people can learn a lot. She's an impressive person to begin with, but people can learn a lot about not letting distractions get in the way of their events. Because she certainly didn't do that. She simply stayed focused on what she was doing and got it done.
Hmm.
And that quality is not a special quality. That's something anybody can control. Anybody can do.
Right.
Is not let the distractions get in the way.
Hmm.
So I think there's a good important lesson for everybody in that one, that you don't have to be Sarah Thomas in order to accomplish. Other
Right.
things you really need to be Sarah Thomas if you want to accomplish.
Right. But yeah,
Uh,
but you can control how you react to things you can't control, right? Is that kind of what
exactly.
you're alluding to?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You can do that. The variables in open water swimming are so many and so varied. I know that's a tautology, but they we can control certain things. We can control our training. We can control our diet. We can control a lot of things, but we can't control the wind. We can't control the waves. Can't control the sharks. There's things you can't control.
Yep. Yeah. Can you tell us about the swim that you're the most proud of?
Um, I think the obvious answer is Kaivi Channel. It was always when I was watching people as I was doing triathlons, watching the open water swimmers. Kaivi was special, still is special. Despite the number of people that have done it since it became part of the Ocean Seven, it still is a challenging swim for in large part due to the variables. But I will tell you, the event that I liked, I think probably I'm the happiest with ever, was the Scar of 2018. It was just turned out. I had no expectations going into it. I was 59 years old. I was just a week short of 60, and I just showed up to swim. And one thing led to another, and I just had a series of good swims, and I met some really fantastic people. Attila, who owns the Manioki, who owns the Kaibi Channel record, uh, was there, and it's the first time I really spent any real time with him. Serbio from Florida, got to meet him, got to know him. One of his support crew is a guy I ran into swimming in Tampa one day. I was doing some depositions down in Tampa and was training with a team. And we kind of looked at each other and said, yeah, I think I may know you, because in this small world, this open water swimming, he was there supporting him. So, I think that was probably, I have the fondest memories of that series of swims, I think of all time. Though every swim is special. The swim to Kawakahi was special. The group I was with was so marvelous, and anytime I swim with Ryan, I'm in a good space. I failed in Tahoe, and I said very truly to people afterwards that the reason I failed is because I didn't have my swimming partner with me.
Mm.
That I just didn't have that steady pace, and I don't think I'll ever do an open water swim of any significance, of a distance swim, a channel, without him with me, because we really do have a nice rhythm together. Even when we got lots of people with us. I mean, we've done some swims with 8 or 9 people, and we don't swim by each other's side more than 10 minutes during the swim. But it's just being in the same water space with him.
Mm-hmm. That's great. So what happened to Tahoe?
Bad attitude, bad failure, bad night, just a bad day.
Yeah.
It actually brought up another saying that I've had since then, which is, it's really expensive to fail.
It is.
When we succeed in our swims, the cost, and we know, and I think anybody that's listening to this knows, this is not for the weak of purse.
Right.
Swimming is expensive.
It's very
And
expensive.
so, when you fail, it seems so much more expensive. The boat, the Tahoe has those registration fees, everything else is. And I was talking to Charles Brown about it just yesterday. We were talking on the phone about some swims we're going to do later this summer. And we were both talking about how Tahoe can be a really difficult swim, but once you do it, it seems easy. So I'd like to go back and try it, but I think I want to go back and try the width.
Oh yeah.
I think I'd like to get across some length before I think about going the length again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And maybe that's the arrogance you have of thinking you can do anything, and obviously I didn't.
Was it cold the day you were there?
Not particularly. I mean, it was in the 60s.
Yeah.
So not terribly cold, but yeah, it was not. Just a bad day. I mean,
yeah, it wasn't the altitude or anything like that. Some people have, yeah.
I think it's just attitude. I had the wrong attitude going into it. And I didn't control it very well. I regret. I mean, I periodically I'll think to myself, man, I wish I'd kept going, but I didn't. So you move along to the next swim. We've got a lot of great swims planned, and we've got a great swim plan this summer. We're gonna Steve Manalia. When we came back from SCAR the first time, remember we were talking about doing something in the channels, and he actually put together a 3-channel swim. He's put it on 3 or 4 times now, where he gets groups of people and they go one day. We're going to try the same thing with a group of our friends, only it's blossomed from our core group of swimmers from the Altamont Beach Swim Club. We all have friends that we swim with periodically, and we'll say, let's go swimming. Sometimes we'll have 10 or 12 people with us. So we're going to try and take somewhere between 15 and 20 people across the channel, and at least one day, and some of them 2 days, some of them all 3 days. So it goes back to that whole notion of giving back. We're going to take people across the channel who've never been across the channel before. I did that a couple of years ago with a group of high school kids, and it wasn't me. It was one of their friends organized it, Skylar and Webb. She's a really spectacular person. She has a website called Channel Swimming or Crossing a Channel or something to that effect that she put together as part of one of her school projects. And the other part was taking a group of her friends, swimmers, all across the channel. So they trained together. They went through the program, and I was fortunate enough to be asked by her father to join them just as I don't want to call it an escort, but just as one of the adults who'd done it before.
Mm-hmm.
I did that. I trained with them, and it was fun. So we went across the channel with 8 high school kids who had never been across the channel before.
That's
cool.
An
Incredibly cool experience.
Yeah, that's great. Do you think they'll continue swimming channels, any of them? Or long distance swimming? Yeah.
Some yes, some no. If you look at the list of people who've done the Out channel, there's a ton of people that have one channel there. They wanted to accomplish the channel, and they got it, and they're proud of it, and they should be. It's not an insignificant thing. Bill Godding, who I swim with, has done it well over 20 times now. He gets psyched up every time he does it, and he recognizes the challenge of it every time he does it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people forget that they've done it once. Say, "Oh, I can just go out and knock out a channel. I can do this." and that may be true, but it's still, I think it, it's important to remember that each time you do one of these things, it's a challenge. It's
Yeah.
like when I used to line up for an Ironman, I'd sit there at the beginning of the swim and I kind of look around and think, oh man, I'm going to do this to myself again.
Right.
And you do it to yourself again, and some days better than others. And so swimming, I think swimming is much the same way. You get, except for one thing. When I'm in the middle of the Maui County Triangle, the three channels right there, when we stop and we're doing a feed, and I look around, that's my favorite place in the universe. For some people, it's Disneyland. Some people, people, it's the desert. For me, when I can sit in the middle of those channels and look and see Molokai, Lanai, Maui, and I'm right there in the middle, I can go any direction, go to any one of them. That is the place that I love the most.
That sounds amazing. Dean, I talked to Dean Summers last week, and he was talking about when he did the what's the one called, the Ocean 7 one?
The
The
Kaiwi.
okay, yeah, people call it different names though, don't they?
Well,
Incorrectly, maybe.
It's the Molokai channel. It's the Kaiwi channel. It's the Channel
Maybe.
of Bones.
Yeah, he just talked about though, just like yeah, just like how much he loved being a tiny speck, in the middle of the ocean, and he's like just with just these little islands around, and just how it felt, how special it was. So
It's a
someday.
pretty cool feeling. I tell you, what's even cooler though is in the next day or the next week when you're flying over. I had to go to the mainland for something about 5 or 6 days after I did the channel, and I'm flying over, and I had a window seat for some strange reason, and I'm flying over, looking out the window, and on one side you can see Molokai, you can see Oahu. Then it was like, wow, that is a long way.
It's impressive. Yeah, it's a hard, when you're standing and you're looking and you can't necessarily even see where you're swimming to or flying over it, but and it's amazing just to think that a little human can just move one arm and then another and somehow get to the other side.
And that's
Beautiful.
important. You keep moving an arm. It took us. We tried twice. We tried on Monday. We took off. We got chased by a tiger shark about halfway through, a little over halfway through. Just kept getting closer and closer. Maybe it was just a curious shark. Maybe it was never going to do anything. We knew a lot less about. We had a lot less of a comfort level of swimming with sharks back in 2017. But it finally got so close that we decided, it'd be a better idea to try again another day. So
Hmm.
we got out, and on Wednesday of that week, Ryan came up to me and said, we were out having dinner, talking about buying things for the people we worked with, our escorts and the friends, the people that helped us, what we could get them for gifts. And he said, we got to go. We can't not, we trained, we got to go again. This is actually on Tuesday night. And I remember saying to him, Ryan, I'm not saying no. The next morning is Wednesday. He's still talking that way. Wednesday afternoon, he calls me up and says, I've got a boat for us. I've got someone to pick us up in Maui or Molokai to take us there. We're going on Saturday. I said, can't do it. I've committed to Bill to doing the Maui Channel relays on Saturday. I'll go on Sunday. So we went on Sunday, the next Sunday. And it was really just a matter of going as hard as we could and getting there, or rather going as smart as we could. So it took us 19 hours because we picked a day where the conditions weren't
Wow.
that great. We didn't have
Mm.
enough wind. And I think one of the things we've decided after doing the swim and watching it enough, you actually don't want a perfectly calm day.
Mm.
If you look at windy and it's completely blue, it's probably not enough wind to create enough of a motion to bring you towards Oahu. You
Hmm.
probably want blue going into Green Day on windy, and everybody's looked at windy and know exactly what I'm talking about. But you want a little bit of wind, you want a little bit of ocean movement to help counteract the currents. Because
Mhm.
if you look at our line, we went way far north and then we went way far south. And the GPS on the boat was over 60K for a 46K swim.
Oh, wow.
We put in a little extra mileage
Yeah, yeah.
that day, at least swimming time. I remember the captain said, "Oh, this is just it's movement, lateral movement. Don't worry about it." I said, "Does it ever favor us? Does it ever work in our favor? This lateral movement that we get?"
Right,
Uh, it really didn't. So the point is though, you just keep trying, you just keep swimming, and you do a longer swim, it just takes longer, but you just keep going.
yeah.
Um, and people need to know that's the secret. That's the secret of channel swimming. Just keep going.
Just keep going. Exactly. How do you convince yourself to keep going when you kind of just don't want to anymore?
You got your friend Ryan next to you. You know he's not quitting. And of course, he's sitting there thinking, I'm not quitting if Stefan's not quitting. So that mutual dishonesty with each other seems to work.
That's good. What have you learned about yourself from marathon swimming?
Oh, the most important thing that I think the most important self-realization has is that you can do things if you put your mind to it. But I think for me, I have a really high stress job. I mean, high stress. I'm a lawyer and I deal with people's problems. I'm a litigator. Every day I come to work. I never come to work with everyone saying, let's stop and smell the roses. There's problems, there's issues, there's disputes. This morning, I was here at 8 o'clock for a dispute on the phone, between people. It's just what I have. It's what I do. And swimming has been a really good way of getting away from that tension. And I've learned how to do that over time. So like I said, I enjoy being in the water. I enjoy, we swam yesterday, saw a beautiful monk seal yesterday. Saw a lot of turtles, had a nice swim on Saturday, same thing. It's so spectacular to enjoy everything around you, and swimming allows you to do that. And I'm awfully fortunate that I have my wife is incredibly supportive of my swimming. She understands when I say, I'm going swimming on Saturday morning, I'm going swimming on Sunday morning, I'm going to come back, I'm going to lie around for a while before I do anything.
Yeah.
She understands that, she gets that. And I know not everybody is as lucky as I am in that regard, but that's also been a really nice, important thing for me, and that I've been, as I say, very fortunate about.
Does she like to support you while you're doing your swims, or not really?
No, she does perfectly. She'll go ride her mountain bike. She'll play some tennis. She'll go paddle her canoe. Not her anywhere near me. She says watching swimming is watching paint dry. So, and I'm down with that. I mean, I really don't. It's what I do. It's not what she does.
Yeah. Yep.
She loves the water. She just likes to be on top of the water, not in the water.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Um, what motivates you to keep going?
Well, what else is there?
No other options.
Yeah, look, and I like Hawaii in particular is an outdoor lifestyle, and my friends, the people that I'm closest with, are all outdoor. They're active people, and so I enjoy spending time with them. My wife is an outdoor active person, and so swimming is a way of being outdoor and active. It's a way of I just feel cleaner in the ocean. I feel better when I get out of the ocean. I don't care how hard of a swim I've had. In fact, the harder sometimes the better. If I've left more behind. I think that the ocean is once again my favorite place in the world, is that little spot. So I want to be able to keep doing that until I'm 95. And at 95, maybe I'll take a break. Maybe I'll have the boat take me to the middle, and I'll get off the boat, just hang out in the water for a while.
Right.
Up until 95, I want to swim there on my own, get there and stop and enjoy that spot in the ocean that I think is the most perfect spot to be.
That's awesome. How do you think we could include more people in the sport?
Well, one of the things we do, I mean, I alluded to it earlier, we're taking a bunch of people across the channel. We by doing a fairly large group of people, we're likely going to have multiple boats. We can introduce them to a channel that way, in a way that's not cost prohibitive. So we need to start off by there's just barriers, and there's nothing we can do about those barriers unless we can do certain things to make it easier for groups of people to do swims. And I'm not suggesting the English Channel people should change their rules and start having tandem swims or anything like that. But at the same time, I think we have to recognize that if you do a tandem swim, we've just cut the cost of the boat in half. Mm-hmm. Twice as many people can finish something, as long as they don't draft off of each other and touch each other and do all the things that you're not supposed to do within the rule. So we do that. I mean, we're trying to do that. And our Solstice Swim is partially aimed at that, getting people out in the open water and swimming large events. Ryan and I did a talk recently with a couple of the other people that we swim with on one of these Zoom conferences. Once again, passing out information about channel swimming so that it doesn't seem mysterious. And we've had small groups here in Hawaii that have taken off and done it. They've said, let's go do it. So we need to let people know that it's accessible, that it can be done, that you don't have to have any special qualities other than determination and a willingness to try, and maybe a willingness to fail if you don't make it. I mean, that you have to really accept that sometimes there's things you can't overcome. But I think anybody, I really truly believe this. Anybody that could swim has a possibility of doing a channel. Not everybody can do a channel. I've seen lots of swimmers. I would never suggest they try. But for the most part, the people I see day in and day out, I think they can at least try and do a channel. And we just have to make that have to make the information accessible to them so that they don't have those barriers to channeling. I don't think we need to change any rules or do anything like that. As I say, I'm going to advocate for one rule change. I'm going to do it. And I know a few people out there are not going to like it when I say this. I think we should be allowed to wear watches with GPS devices in them when we're doing our swim. Just saying, not really helping us that much. It's fun. It gives you all that's nerd statistic information that you like. So that's a rule I'm advocating to change. Thanks, guys.
Do you think that the more people we could get to swim channels, do you think they'll be better for it?
Channels are the people.
The people.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think that doing more channels, getting more people to do it, I think those people will have that sense of accomplishment. We're going to get a lot of people that it's a bucket list thing. They want to do one channel, that's it. I mean, but I've dealt with that triathletes that for years. They wanted to do one Ironman, they got their Ironman, that's it. They didn't do triathlons ever again. Fair. I mean, people have experiential lives. They want to climb that mountain. They want to swim that channel, and then they want to go on to the next thing. That's cool. With me, I don't see any problem with that at all.
Yeah. I'm always hopeful that, they'll just learn a little bit more about themselves, or I don't know, become a little bit more aware of the need to keep the water clean or the beach clean, or I don't know.
Well, hopefully it doesn't take channel swimming to do that. In Hawaii, we have a particularly bad problem with not our islands particularly, but outside of Hawaii, there's big balls of trash in the ocean, and we see the plastics after we still sometimes see debris from the tsunami, the Japan tsunami. You can see it's stuff that's it's old and it's come from Japan because it was such a horrible devastation there, and so much stuff was swept into the water. But then we do treasure hunting swims where we swim a couple of miles. We spend a lot of time going down to the bottom looking for things. A couple of weeks ago, we found 12, 14 pairs of sunglasses.
Wow.
Pins, action figures. Now, these things that the sunglasses, sometimes you like them, sometimes you don't. The action figures, pretty cool stuff we get. Whole collection of action figures, GoPros, wallets. It's all out there in the ocean. And it's that kind of stuff that people probably shouldn't be putting in the ocean but gets put there. So we do our part to pull some of it out.
I'm gonna tell my kids I want to go swim in Hawaii, and I'll bring back some action figures.
I got this a spot for you.
Okay. That's awesome. What would you tell an aspiring marathon swimmer? What kind of advice would you give them?
Same advice I always give. Lots of Vaseline.
That's really good advice.
There are so many people that I know that do their first one or two swims without Vaseline. And you think to yourself, how did you do that? And they pay the price. I think the real advice would be you got to keep swimming. You got to find a pot of people that are about the same quality of swimmer that they are, that have some of the same ambitions, and stick with it. The year Ryan and I and Ryan and I have been friends for a number of years. We coached when he showed up at Boca as one of the coached athletes. Howell said to me, "Oh, this guy's a swimmer. He can help you out." And he turned out to be a real godsend because he could help out, and he did know coaching, he did know swimming, and we became pretty good friends. And I'm going to say this, I'm going to say it here, and he'll get mad at me, but the last time we did an Ironman race again, I got out of the water in front of him. Just want him to remember that. So we've been great training friends. And that summer we did Kaiwi. we saw each other virtually every day, but three, when I was on the mainland for 3 days for a business trip.
Oh, wow.
We were with each other, we swam together. And I saw inspiring marathon swimmer, get used to swimming with your pod.
Yeah.
You've got to develop the sense of purpose as a group. You got to motivate each other to get in the water together, to do that next training session. So it's too easy to take days off. It's too easy to say, I'm tired, I'm
Yes.
sore, I
Yes.
don't. And the fact of the matter is the more you swim, the better you feel.
Yep. That's good advice. Who's inspired you?
Linda Kaiser.
Linda Kaiser.
Linda Kaiser is one of two people that has swum every channel in Hawaii. The only one she didn't do solo was Oahu to Kauai. She did a relay, and only a few people have even tried to swim Oahu to Kauai, and nobody's made it solo
Wow.
for a whole lot of reasons. But some people, I know Penny Palfrey, I think was, if she wasn't the last, she was the last person that made a serious effort at it, and
Mm-hmm.
she got a long way, and they had to pull her up. I wasn't on the boat. Bill was on the boat, but she just got just tortured by jellyfish.
Jeez.
So she's a pretty spectacular swimmer, and so but Linda did all those channels, and Linda years ago is the one that got me into channel swimming. I'll never forget when I was training for SCAR, or no, for NWET rather, and she said to me, "What's your nutrition?" I said, "Oh, I'm doing this," and that. She goes, "Stefan, you got to get serious about this. You're a real swimmer now. Nutrition's important."
You're a real swimmer now.
And I thought about that, and she was absolutely right. It was, and so Linda, she passed a few years ago, but I'll never forget being at the beach when I landed in Kaiwi, and she came down to meet us, and she looked and says, "Stefan, I'm so proud of you,"
Oh,
and I can't tell you how much that meant to me,
yeah.
both then and even to this day, because she really was what swimming is about. She embodied what swimming is supposed to be about, what open water swimming is supposed to be about, which is encouraging your friends, taking joy in the success of your friends, and helping them to be a success. Those are the things that she embodied, and so I still think of her when I swim.
That's wonderful. I'm sorry I can't talk to her.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for sharing your story, Stefan. It's been
you are more
wonderful.
than welcome. It was a joy to be here. I appreciated it. I look forward to talking with you again in the future.
I hope you enjoyed today's interview. Do you want to take marathon swim stories with you? Subscribe on your favorite podcast provider. Want to connect with like-minded limit pushers? Join us for Marathon Swim Stories live on Tuesdays at 5:30 a.m. Pacific, 8:30 Eastern, 13:30 GMT. Thanks for watching.